about men joining this organization, and it reminded me, I get in an argument with my wife all the time because she gets mad at me because she's a member of this organization and I've attended more meetings than she has because she works during the day all the time. So she got her information about this meeting. She said, once again, you're going to the giving circle and I won't be there. So, the Gates Project has taken up quite a bit of a lot of our time. Where it basically came from to try and give you a little bit of background on how I think in the direction I'm trying to take the police department, so you understand this, is that we can't arrest our way out of our problems. We have tons of issues that go on, not just in York, but any municipality. We have to start looking at ways that we can prevent crime, that we can deal with the causations of crime, and we can limit a criminal's ability to commit a crime, because most criminals are opportunists. They don't want something that's tough. If I'm walking down a dark alley, chances are they're probably not going to try and rob me just because I still have a little bit of size to me. I'm still ugly looking, and I present a little bit of a problem where someone that doesn't. Yeah, I have a gun with me, all the time, which they don't know about, but they will find out about. So they're an opportunist. They're looking for easy targets, not only in people but in buildings and locations and in the crimes that they commit. Even before I took over as chief, when I was operations commander of the police department, we started to put together what we called neighborhood policing units. And we began experimenting with them in various ways on a part-time basis, moving into a full-time basis. And Sergeant Losty, that's here with me today, is one of the supervisors of a couple of those units. We're up to 6 neighborhood policing units now, actually 7 if you count the school resource officers, which I do, and the superintendents here. We believe that the school is actually a neighborhood within our community, and it's important that we address their issues separately. They have a lot of issues that we don't have to address regularly outside of the school district, and so do ours. But we've created neighborhoods, geographical areas where we've assigned officers that their job is to go into those areas, excuse me, and they look at the problems that are there. They go in and they try and see what are the issues, because each community is different, and they're there as problem solving. Has anyone heard of as problem solvers? Has anybody heard of community policing? I'm not. It's a term that's out there. Academia gave it to us. There's all kinds of books on it, but academia, when they gave it to us, really never told us how to implement it. They just told us you should go out here and you should work with the community, and it's a great concept. It should make sense, but it depends on how it's implemented, and we've tried several different ways. I'm a big problem solver. I don't believe that we should just go into the community and walk around and shake hands and be nice to people and wave to them. I believe we should be there solving the problems in their community, looking at what their problems are, trying to find ways that we can help them with those issues. And a lot of their issues, and Sergeant Losty can talk about it when he talks about the West End, aren't often what people outside the city think the problems are. We read the newspapers, and newspapers glorify, or they glamorize everything. They make it sound like if you go up to an intersection in your car, you're going to have someone jump out with a gun and pull you out of the car and hit you a couple times and shoot you, and you'll move on. I mean, you all came in here today. How many of you were robbed on the way in? Hopefully you'll get out okay with this terrible city. But a lot of the problems when you talk to the people that live here have to do with disorder. They have to do with nuisance crimes like abandoned vehicles and buildings that are abandoned and need to be boarded up, and street lights that are out, and those sorts of things. One of the big things, if you live in the city or in the row home situation, are the breezeways that are between the houses here. And they were put in for a purpose. I'm told they were put in so that the milk delivery people could get to the back and drop your milk off for you and wouldn't have to leave it out front for you. When I was a little kid, my grandmother was still getting milk on Philadelphia Street, but they would drop it off at the front. She had a little box there, and they would throw it in. I remember that. So the breezeway wasn't being used for that. And no one stole the milk, amazingly, in the city. But now we have these breezeways, these entryways to buildings, to the rear of buildings that people can move in and out through, people that don't live there. And we've noticed that a lot of crime was happening around these breezeways. It was places for criminals to hide guns. It was places for criminals to hide their drugs. It was places for criminals to go to the bathroom. Can you imagine each day having to wake up, and when you talk to people that live in these neighborhoods, wake wake up each day and have to hose down the back of your home and the breezeway between your home because of the smell of urine. And if you talk to police officers, we'll all tell you we know that smell all too well because we're used to moving in and out of those same breezeways. There are also avenues of escape for criminals. Again, our criminals, they look for the easiest way to do things. When they plan their crime, if they can look, hey, I can get away through here. This is easy. I can get across a couple blocks with ease because of all these breezeways. So it gives them an avenue of escape, makes it tough for the police to move into an area. We only have so many police officers. When we go there to a block to try and arrest someone, if we have 20 people that all of a sudden take off on us, we have 3 police officers that are trying to make that arrest, and we have 20 breezeways up and down the street. Look at all those avenues of escape. There's only so many of us. And the way we used to combat that would be to drop one guy off in the back, the other 2 would go to the front, and we'd see what happened. And we'd get lucky, we'd get one. If not, we'd work it out. You know, we kind of adapt to things, but it was very tough trying to decide what breezeway they were going to run through. So, and I lose track of time, but 4 or 5 years ago was the initial
2006.
Through the Salem Square Association of Women's Giving Circle donated funding to put gates up in one block, in the 600 block of West Princess Street. And it didn't even cover the whole block, but what we noticed when I talked to the officers that were working out there was that it kind of moved criminals around. They knew where the gates were because it blocked off their avenue of escape. We also noticed that they couldn't go in there and they couldn't hide their guns, they couldn't hide their drugs, they couldn't go in and utilize the restroom facilities outside of someone's house. So we saw some positive effect taking place. We really didn't see that it was having a huge dramatic effect on crime, but those of us that were there each day, each night, watching what was going on in the neighborhood, we could tell that it was having an effect. It was changing things. So when the Women's Giving Circle came to us and talked to us about things that we thought would benefit the York City Police Department, they kept coming back to the list. And to the top of the list is something that we thought was very valuable from what we saw. So you all were kind enough to supply us with the funding to be able to take the Salem Square area, the west end of the city, our West End neighborhood unit area, and work on putting breezeway gates up. We had many partners that were involved in that. What I was amazed with was the volunteerism that took place. I mean, people talk about volunteerism being dead, and Delane, I mean, it was amazing as far as I was concerned, especially the people coming in from outside the city that were coming in, the workers from Habitat for Humanity, the workers from the York Builders Association and Kinsley Construction. And it had a positive effect on them also because they came in to put these gates up, and all of a sudden they had people coming out of their homes and hugging them and thanking them and telling them, this gives me security tonight. And it's one thing you can't measure, and we've talked about this with Lisa and Delane many times. You can't measure someone's sense of security. Even though that neighborhood maybe didn't change a whole lot, to give that individual, that one person in that home, that sense of security that they can walk out and put garbage outside the back of their house tonight and not have to worry about someone being in their breezeway is huge when you talk to the people that live in these neighborhoods. It just gives them that sense of, now I control my surroundings. Before I didn't, anybody could be here. Now I control it. I have a sense of security. Things are better for me. And after the first year of putting these gates in of the West End unit being in place and many things happening, and I'll allow Sergeant Lofty to talk about it then from his viewpoint, but we started, myself, when I would go out there and walk around, people would come up to me and say, thank you. I sat out on my porch for the first time this summer in a very long time. I couldn't do that. It also showed that we were investing in the neighborhood, because it was one of the things very early on when Sergeant Lofty and I went out to the first meeting or two with those people. The big thing they talked about was, we've heard this before. You guys will be here for a little bit, and you're not coming back. We told them right there, we're here to stay. We're going to take care of this issue. The big thing was taking care of Gus's Bar, which was a huge blight to that neighborhood. It was a center for crime, and we wanted to take care of it very quickly. It didn't happen that way, but things aren't ever the way that we planned them to take place. But the guys out in that area, Sergeant Lofty's crew, worked very hard to make sure that Gus's Bar was done away with. They went through and they took care of all a lot of the nuisance problems that people had. Garbage that had been in place for a very long time, abandoned vehicles that had been there for a very long time. Talked to the neighbors, got to know the business people, and they learned what their individual issues were. When we talk about quality of life, a big thing we have going for us right now is, y'all see, and I get hit on for this all the time, the ugly yellow signs around York that are in the windows. People think that they're houses that are being condemned. They're not. It's a trespassing program that we have. Unfortunately, the signs are the way they are. We've tried to change them because the magistrates basically told us this is what needs to be in place. This is what has to happen for us to uphold a trespassing charge against people. We have, what do you think, 2,500 around in there now?
Almost 25.
Yeah, it started out with a few houses out in the West End. We're up over 2,500 properties. They came to us and asked us to put these no trespassing signs up on their property. And now our officers go out, and when they see that, they know that that's a property. They know that people aren't supposed to be loitering on that property, and we can go up and we can do something about that. Before, people would stand on your porch. If you lived in your porch, and you would come out and tell them to move. I ain't moving. Now we come out and we move them for you. If they don't, we arrest them, and it keeps things clear. It makes sure the porches aren't being loitered on. It's another step in this whole cog of trying to limit criminal accessibility and limit what they can and cannot do. Least, one of the big things, everybody likes stats. I hate talking about stats. It drives me insane. I know you do, but as a cop, we're very superstitious. I just talked about stats the other day, and we just had a homicide last night. To me, in my mind, you all probably figure there's no causation there, but in my mind, in any cop's mind, Sergeant Lawson would probably tell you the same thing. There's causation there. So I hate talking about it, but I'm going to talk about it a little bit. The stats we have are comparing 2011 up to the end of September to 2012 up to the end of September. The reason that's happening in the West End area is we put a new computer system in place in 2011 to track our statistics. Very much better system than what we had prior, and we believe it gives us a more accurate count. So we're using those statistics, and hopefully it will continue. But just to let you know, in that West End area where we put the gates up, comparing 2011 to the end of October to 2012, the end of October, we've had an 18% decrease in Part 1 crimes. For those of you that don't know, Part 1 crimes are those crimes that are the most violent. They're homicides, they're shootings, they're rapes, they're burglaries, those sorts of things. We've also had a 22% decrease in Part 2 crimes. These are our nuisance crimes a lot of times, our drug dealing or disorders and those sorts of things. It's a very long list, but the Uniform Crime Reports kind of breaks that down. And it gives us an overall decrease of 20% in that area comparing 2011 to 2012. Again, it's only 1 year. There's not a whole lot you can do with that when you're looking at statistics, but it kind of gives you a view that the many things that we're doing there, we believe, is having an impact. We're going to continue to stay out there and do those things, and you all have been a great partner in doing that for that area. I mean, you've given people a quality of life, a sense of security that they did not have before. And Delane, I'm sure, could get up here and talk about all the people that she met that told her these things. And so we often can't, although statistics are fantastic, we often can't just go by statistics. We have to go by what we are seeing, what we're seeing on the street, what people are telling us, and how they're feeling about their neighborhood and the appreciation for the neighborhood. It's never going to be unicorns jumping over rainbows, and I know I've said that to Lee several times. It's an urban area, and there's crime in urban areas, and that's just the reality of life. And I believe the people that live in those areas understand that. There's a lot of great people that live in each of our neighborhoods in the city. Some of them choose to be there. Some of them are there because they can't afford to live anywhere else, but they deserve to have a great quality of life. They want to be vital in giving to their community, but they need us to help boost them up a lot of times, to know that we're going to be there to help them out, that somebody's there caring about what's going on within their community, and you all have done that through this project. We've had tons of requests from people outside of the West End neighborhood that want these gates. We get phone calls quite often about them requesting that these gates go up. We think this project has worked so well because we've had so many things in place, and Lise talked about Delane and her ability to be a great facilitator, and Joanne Borders, who was instrumental in helping with that community and being a liaison in that community, our West End unit out there working together with the citizens. So all these pieces came together to really do a great job out there. The lights that are out there now, you could land an airplane on West Princess Street just like you can out in Old Town East, Jane. So, yes?
The area that you removed all this crime from, the decrease, where did they go?
We displace it, unfortunately. We notice, and Sergeant Losty, who's out there every day, can probably talk about this better than I can, although I watch what's going on, but it moves to the edges, and then we have to target those edges. We push it around. I mean, my goal is to push it outside the city. I want to push it out into these other areas. I just want to keep pushing it around. You know, that's all you can do, and they adapt to what we're doing, and I'm sure Sergeant Losty could talk about that a little bit also. But the criminals adapt to what we're doing, and we have to continually change and adapt to
Don't push them
what
my
we're
way.
doing. How about I push them completely out of Pennsylvania down into Maryland?
Have you found that people now want to buy these things and put them up themselves? Is there a way for them to do that? Do you have a...
We haven't offered that to anyone, and I don't know if Delane got any calls from people about. Most of the people we're dealing with are people that can't necessarily afford to do that, or they would
Talking
have
about
done
personal safety.
Sure.
We have.
Some people
We
might.
send them to Kinsley, and
They've been doing it on their own.
yes, they have.
So that's an important
For the
measure.
people that,
Yeah.
yes.
Anything else? I will let Sergeant Losty give you his viewpoint. He's out there every day, and he can put a different spin on things.
Thank you, Chief. A couple things I'll apologize for. One, I'm going to repeat a little what Chief Kaylee talked about, and secondly, I'm a little rough around the edges because I'm pretty much out on the street, and so I'm going to talk pretty plain spoken.
You're not allowed to curse,
I won't allow it. Chief Kaylee came to me in September of '08, and he basically said something that piqued my interest. I was not a big believer of the community policing that Chief Kaylee spoke about, the shaking the hands. Now that that's not part of talking to the community, but if that's the only thing there was, it didn't seem to be working. He said something to me that piqued my interest, and that was, if I want to start a problem-solving type unit. I want a unit that if there's some juveniles up on a porch smoking marijuana, that you not only arrest them, but that you also find out why are they up there at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, speaking with Judge Euler was talking about truancy. You know, where's their parents, where's their mom, where's their dad, whatever the case may be. What does the landlord think of that? So that's kind of the foundation of what we started to do. And we started to not only make the arrest, because there has to be an enforcement aspect, but we also started to contact the parents. If we got no cooperation from the parents, which sometimes we didn't, we would contact the landlord, because most of them were not owner-occupied. And we would say, do you realize that your tenant has kids that are smoking marijuana on the porch, or drinking beer on the porch, or dealing drugs on the porch, whatever the case may be, or in the breezeways, as I'll speak about in a couple minutes. That landlord would then address it with the mother, the father, whatever the parental unit was, and either it would stop, or landlords would evict the people. Now, not that we want them to evict people and put people out on the street, but landlords did not want to have to deal with the ramifications of their property or properties, when you're talking about some of these big rental companies, of dealing with that type of stigma that, the only people that purchase from them or that rent from them are people that are out there doing those types of things. So Chief Kaylee gave me the mandate, basically close Gus's and think out of the box. That was pretty much all he tied my hands with. He said, you can make your own hours, you can do what you want as far as enforcement, but I don't want it to just be a stat-driven type unit. We went to some community meetings, as the chief spoke about, and predominantly everybody said the same thing to us. Why should we believe you guys? Because you're only going to be here for a year, maybe 2 years if we're lucky. We assured them that that wasn't going to be the case. We had a lot of things in mind, and we heard the same thing. You'll never shut Gus's. You'll never do anything that's going to impact this neighborhood and that 600 block of West Princess, although my West End area covers a lot of area. That was our kind of the area we were going to zero in on. We proved them wrong. We closed Gus's. It was a longer period of time than I wanted to, but we closed Gus's. The aircraft landing lights got put up, which were a huge help. I wish they put them up everywhere. And we started this trespassing program as far as the yellow signs that the chief spoke about. That is probably one of my biggest bats in my bag, along with the gates. Then the gates came along. Some people were very leery about it. I'm not going to be able to get to my trash, I'm not going to be able to this, I'm not going to be able to that. Obviously, we were hearing from some of the houses that, you know, they were problem houses because they wanted those breezeways open, okay? But most of these properties being not owner-occupied, we got a lot of the landlords on board, and we're able to start putting these gates up. I will tell you, in the 20 years I have, most of it in the West End, I will tell you, and I think you like this, it was the right money at the right place at the right time. And the reason for that is because it wasn't just a cosmetic thing. You know, these people aren't that live in this West End aren't people that are going to go out to Lowe's or Home Depot and buy a gate and put it up. Okay, they're people that obviously are in the poverty type area. They're people that take advantage of the fire department coming out and putting up free fire detectors, smoke detectors, things like that. So they started jumping at this. We immediately, once the gates started getting put up, and obviously I think the 600 block was kind of the epicenter. Once that started happening, we started seeing people that were dealing the drugs, that were using the breezeways as a bathroom, as Chief Cayley spoke about. And literally, I would watch them on Tuesday mornings washing down their breezeways so they could get back there, or their kids could go to school, or whatever the case may be. We started to see a profound effect to the degree that when we were doing surveillance in those areas where the bad guys couldn't see us, when a police car or my units would come down the street, they didn't know which way to go. Because if you know the 600 block West Main Street, you can only go east or west. Once we put those gates up, they can't go north and south. One real quick story is we changed our hours one night. It was about 3:50 in the morning. They thought we had gone home because they tracked my guys pretty well when we were. And we did some surveillance. Gates were up, and we saw a couple guys throwing dice. It's a quality of life issue. It was pretty slower than that, but there was about 12 guys, and they were right in the middle of the block where the gates were. They couldn't go anywhere but east or west. We set up. We came in. And all we saw was dice. We came in, and it was like deer in the headlights. They didn't know what to do, and the dice at the end of this was the smallest crime we had. We ended up getting 3 guns right then and there. We ended up getting a good amount of drugs, and we ended up making some very good arrests. Now, the reason I bring that story up among probably the hundreds I have is because we got guns off the street, we got drugs off the street, and I guarantee you if the gates had not been there with the 6 officers I had, we never would have been able to handle that amount of people in a small area. But we came in from both sides, and they just literally looked, they had nowhere to go. They couldn't go in the houses because they were locked. They couldn't go through the gates because they were locked. So they had nothing to do, and obviously, you know, we ended up making numerous arrests. Most of the people I deal with when I go to these community meetings, and most of the comments I get, isn't just about drug dealing. A lot of the comments that the gates have solved are quality of life. The smoking weed in a breezeway, the being able to, you know, get out of that area if they're doing something criminal, going into the breezeway and drinking, sometimes going into the breezeway with something to do with prostitution, and the other thing is just the basic, like I spoke about, as far as the smoking marijuana or doing drug deals inside the breezeways. Without that happening now, we've seen a lot of that leave as far as those areas. Has it all left? No. Will it ever all leave? It won't. As the chief spoke about, it's an urban area. You put a lot of people in a very small area, and unfortunately, sometimes those are the things you get as far as some of the crime we deal with. But a lot of the people spoke about quality of life issues. You know, they were very concerned with, like I said, being able to be in their house safely, sit out on their porch and watch their kids, and if their child wanted to walk back through the breezeway, they didn't have to sanitize the breezeway in order for that child to walk back through there. So, like I said, the gates, as far as that goes, was unbelievably successful. As the chief said, stats, and I'm with the chief, I'm not a big believer in stats, because I could look at these stats and then I could walk down and talk to 50 people in the West Princess Street area, and I would probably get 42 people, 43 people that would say the gates are the best thing in since sliced bread. The stats maybe don't speak to that extreme, but these are people, like I said, that don't have a lot of money. Most of them are in one-parent households, and that parent works, and the kids are out and about, you know. So the area, when you're saying, hey, we're going to put up this gate that's going to stop these quality of life, or at least curtail a lot of these quality of life, and make it so that you can actually walk back, your kids can walk back the breezeway and not step on needles and not step on, you know, crack bags and not do some stuff like that is a huge effect there. And like I said, there's story after story I could tell you, but a lot of the people, when we walk those areas, which is every day, you know, even some of the people that didn't think too much of us being out there as far as this is never going to work type atmosphere, they now will sit out on their porches. They will come out to us at National Night Out, or they will come out to us on a regular basis that they were afraid to before, and they will, you know, make sure that we recognize that the gates are helping. Gus's being gone is helping. The no trespassing signs are helping. So you almost have to be out there and talking to these people to really see the effect these gates. I mean, myself and the chief and probably 20 other people could stand up here. I could have all my guys stand up here and give you the same information. But when you go out there and talk to people that are basically stuck in their houses, unless they're working, they're there because, again, they don't have a lot of money, they're stuck there. And in being stuck there, whatever we can do, the gates being one of them, to give them a better feel of security, a better quality of life, things like that, then like I said, it's well worth the money that's been spent. And like I said, I know there's a lot of projects, but in my opinion, in the 20 years I've been here, especially in the West End, the gate project is probably up in the one or two things that I've seen an actual impact. Some things we do, you don't see the impact. You know, I mean, it's good stuff. It looks good on paper, but it just doesn't have the impact maybe the people that authored the idea thought it would have. This is something that the gates weren't even all up, and we could already see a difference. And now, 600 block of West Princess, although it's not going to be Mayberry, USA, you can literally go down there at night, and you can see the difference. The groups are for the most part gone, because they know once they get in that cage there, once they get in that 600 block especially, and some other blocks, that if they're going to do anything wrong, they got only two ways out, and that's east or west. And if they're caught in the middle of the block, they're going to have some issues with us. So, if there's any questions or...
Yeah, I'll just finish. So where are we now? You might want to know what's the status. I brought this chart because one of our team members, Steve Snyder from Kinsley, did it for me. It's the map of the footprint, the area where we put the gates in, and then he listed every property that has a gate right now on here. And I've talked about the Dream Team before, and he's one of the members. So we've installed 267 gates to date. We have a little bit more than $2,000 left to spend on gates, which will do from 10 to 13 gates. It depends on if it's a single gate or a double gate, whatever size. Right now, Steve's in the process of fabricating 6 more gates, which we hope to have installed by the end of the year. So that's where we are. On a sad note, we lost one of our partners, and Chief Kelly mentioned Joanne Borders. She's been involved with this. She was involved with the project back in 2006. She will be greatly missed. But I just need to say to you that when 6 years ago, Joanne was diagnosed with cervical cancer, and she was operated on, and for almost all of those 6 years, every Monday morning, she went out to hospital and got, I guess it was a light chemo, because there she was Monday afternoon or Tuesday out there working, and she would say to me, I'd ask her how she was doing, and she would always say, Delane, I'm blessed. Now, how many people in this room heard her say that? I am blessed, because every morning when she woke up and she was awake, she would give praise for that, and then she said, I'm here for a reason. I was given this time for a reason, because she really shouldn't have had those 6 years that she had. She was given that time, and she is going to do what she did best, and that was give back. And if you had a need and you were in the city, Joanne Borders was called, and I mean, that is honestly, I've been at her house many times. Her phone rang off the hook. the reason I'm telling you about that was because Joanne had a new mission, and when Joanne had a mission, you listened. The team was really lucky because 2 days before Joanne passed, we were putting her gate up. So we all got to see her, we all got to hug her. She had the big smile, she was skinny, but besides that, I mean, it was the Joanne that I knew. I just could not believe 2 days later she's gone. But she harassed me that morning. She got me cornered, and it had to be at least the 5th time she told me about Liberty Court. Liberty Court doesn't fit into this area. It's a small street east, and it's off of West Pine Street. It's kind of an odd street. It has 13 breezeways, and she said, Delane, this is different. These people need gates. These people are coming and go to us. There's a small group from Liberty Court who came to Joanne, and she went out and looked at it. Chief Kelly looked at it, and they said, this needs to be done. This needs to have gates, and we need to get it done. And I kept saying, Joanne, it doesn't fit into this project. You know, it's outside of this area. And she said, well, I'm giving it to God, and it's going to be done. Okay, so I'm telling you that. Now, what are we going to do? What are our plans? We're going to finish the gates, finish this project that we have right now, hopefully by the end of this year. This team, this dream team, is prepared to do whatever we need to do to get Liberty Court gated in memory of Joanne, but not only that, because it's needed as well. And then the third thing we're going to do, during 2012, we had 2 grants written for us. Jane Conover did one to MetLife, and we had the chief did one from the police department to get more money. We were so close to getting that granted, but it didn't happen. The good thing is, and Jane told me this, Delane, we have these grants written, so all we have to do is tweak them. We're going to spend next year, we're going to be looking around, and both Jane and Chief Kelly say we will find a place and we will get additional money. So that's our plan, and I just want to say I have a heartfelt thank you for making all this
How
happen.
much is it going to cost for Liberty Court to be gated?
It won't even, it'd probably be $3,000. Most of those gates are small. Steve's already been out to look at them. There's one gate that's a little larger, and we usually say $200 for the smaller gate, and then from between $300 and $400 for a double gate. So there's one larger gate, but it's not that much money, really.
Can we give a round of applause for everyone? So there might be more conversation about gates in New York City safety.